May I now request Shri Kiran Vadlamani ji to speak a few words about Indic Academy and its activities and the backdrop in which this program has been organized. He is the founder of Indic Academy, the chief architect of all the activities, multifarious activities that are taking under the title, the banner Indic Academy.
Sri Guru Bhyonama, Honorable Member of the Parliament, Tejasvi Surya, Venerable Gurus on the dais and off the dais, members of Team Indic Academy, Bangalore, ladies and gentlemen. There are, in the history of mankind, several epidemics that have occurred, that have killed people, millions of people. There are epidemics like Justinian plague, the Black Plague, the Spanish flu, the Hong Kong flu, the Chinese flu, different kinds of epidemics. But there's one epidemic that is alive today, and that is combinedly affecting more than all the epidemics in the history of mankind. And this is known as the liberal epidemic or the liberal flu. This is silently killing the intellect of millions and millions of people. In April 2015, I saw a cover of a magazine, and on that there was an empty face, and around that face, on the hair, there were several intellects from the left. And the question that was asked was, where are the intellectuals from the right? When I read that, it struck me that I, as a dharmic, I can see intellects on both sides, but this person, he is from Bangalore, he could not see any intellect from the right. He was suffering from what I realized was cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is the epidemic that the world is suffering from today. Cognitive dissonance, I'm a chartered accountant by profession, but I become a social psychologist thanks to social media. When you observe cognitive dissonance, there are actually three stages. The first stage is political correctness. You want to be politically correct because you don't want to say anything harsh, so you want to be polite. So that's the first stage of political correctness. This is okay. There's no problem with that. But the second stage is there's your belief system and there is a behavior. And that dissonance between your belief system and your behavior is the dissonance. And that is repeated acts of political correctness actually migrates to cowardness. So you become a coward. And then you don't know what to do because you're on the social media and a lot of things are happening and you've already painted yourself in a corner. And this cowardice, you don't want to accept it. That's the dissonance. So you strive for consonance. So the third stage is actually the serious problem that we are all facing. The third stage is when anything happens on the right, which affects the right, there's a stony silence. When anything happens on to the left, there's crying on the rooftops. There is false equivalence. There's whataboutery. There's bringing in context. All these are symptoms of cognitive dissonance. And this led to the starting of Indic Academy in 2015. And the provocation, one of the provocations was that cover, that we set out on a journey. And that journey is to bring about a global renaissance that is based on Indic civilizational thought. We have several massive transformative purposes and goals, several moonshot kind of thinking. One is, we want to decolonize 500 million people. How do we do that? Start thinking about it, decolonizing 500 million people. This is, on the other hand, there are another 500 million people who are not Indians, who are already consuming some elements of our culture, be it yoga, be it meditation, be it Ayurveda, be it any of these aspects. But they're consuming it, but they're refusing to acknowledge the source, that it is from our dharma. So how do you make them reconnect and acknowledge? Because there is a benefit in acknowledgement. There is a benefit because of not appropriation, of not thieving. And there is a benefit of devotion, there's a benefit of transformation. How do you do that? Today, how do we make Purohityam a favorable, wanted goal for a child? That I want to become a Purohit. How do we think of it as a skill development corporation wherein we teach a Purohit things like Vastu Shastra, things like astrology, things like mentorship, that he also becomes like a chartered accountant or a doctor of a family, that you invite the Purohit for counseling to your child, for counseling to your issues. How do we make that happen? How do we ensure not one student of Shastras, not one scholar of Shastras ever suffers because of lack of resources? How do we ensure all the empty nesters? There is this concept of empty nesters when the woman who has dedicated her life to bringing up the children and the children go away to settle in and they don't know what to do. That is called as empty nesters. How do we tap that potential of empty nesters and use them for our dharma? How do we have this concept of retiring at the age of 60 years. All public sector undertaking, all the government, everybody retires at 60. 60 is not a time to retire. So when you retire at 60 and then you are productive till 75, how do we use that talent for our dharma? How do we use it for our dharma? There are so many of you in Bangalore who've been forced to become engineers, right? And now at the age of 35, you're discovering that this was not what I wanted to be. And you're connecting back to your heritage. There are millions of people like that. How do we tap them? They have three options. Either they quit and join full-time into the service of a dharma, or lead a double life, working in both ways, or use our dharmic knowledge to become Indic leaders. There are different ways, possibilities that are there. So these are all the massive transformative goals that we have set ourselves to. In the last 5 years, you may ask me, what exactly have we achieved? What is our strategy? Our strategy is simultaneously, if you think of it like a 3x3 cube, is to preserve, protect, and promote our dharma, is to do it intellectually, culturally, and spiritually, is to think near term, medium term, long term. So all aspects we have to simultaneously think. When we are promoting Carnatic music, we also have to know that there is somebody who says Ra and Ma is just a syllable. It is nothing, it's a note. There's no devotion, there's no bhakti. So we have to think of that. So when we are thinking of our goal of bringing of Indic Renaissance, this is what we think. And then we have two aspects. One at the individual level. We seek to transform the individual through a strategy called self, selfless, and self with a capital S. This is basically our belief that every person should discover his swadharma and fulfill his swadharma. So he can be a thinker, he can be an organizer, he can be a communicator. He might have passion for linguistics, he might have passion for history, he might have passion for Sanskritam, literature. And the varna is that he can become an academic, an author, an artist, an activist. So the first and foremost, we try to see what is it that his self is all about. And the next level is selfless. Offer everything. Ishwararpana prasada bhavam. You offer everything as a selfless. Become a social entrepreneur. And that is what we are trying. And think about everything. Think about all our knowledge as a product, as a service, or an experience. These are the things that are possible. Every aspect of our knowledge can be converted into these three things. And they have to be authentic, immersive, and transformative. These are the conditions in which we try to make this person become selfless. And finally, the self aspect, the capital S aspect, which is the most important aspect from a Purushartha point of view, we keep forgetting it. That is the focus of transforming the individual. In the last 4.5 years, we have done several events, several grants. We have done festivals, conferences, retreats, workshops, book launches. We have emerged as a pioneering institution with more than 200 book launches. So we are conducting various events, and we are giving grants for various things, for events, promotions, projects, scholarships. So all aspects of preserving, protecting our dharma, we are doing that. The second thing is, we're trying to build an ecosystem. Recently, my dear friend Thambi, Anand Ranganathan, was a curator at PLF. And he gave a speech that the left has an ecosystem, the right should not have an ecosystem. Funnily enough, that speech was printed in Swarajya, which was built by Indic Academy as an associate. And that speech was given on a platform called Public Pondy Literature Festival, which is feeded again by Indic Academy. So, he's a good friend and he's my Thambi. But the point I'm trying to make is that Indic Academy doesn't have a view. Indic Academy is trying to build an ecosystem of infrastructure. An ecosystem has living beings and non-living beings. We are that non-living beings. We don't have a view. In fact, we are trying to be as objective as possible, bring forth as much as objectivity as possible in our decision making, bring forth radical truth and radical transparency. We are inspired by Ray Dalio. So soon we will be having algorithmic decision making, that there is no bias, and everybody gets an opportunity to get promoted. In fact, recently we came up with a framework called Books, Behavior, and Beliefs. And basically, when you're thinking of promoting an author, first and foremost, you give importance to the book. What's the quality of the book? And then, what is his belief system? And then his behavior, because you have on social media, you have different kinds of behavior. And then, how do you decide whether we should pass him or platform him or promote him? So we are creating this framework. Our basic idea is that we do not care whether he's left or right. Our primary focus is on the quality of the book, not so much attention to his behavior. But the primary focus is whether he is an Indic or not. And the question you might ask, what is the test for Indic? Of course, we have defined an Indic as someone who celebrates our civilizational continuity, identity, and heritage. That means you have to celebrate. It's not just an intellectual acceptance. There has to be an emotion, there has to be bhavam, there has to be bhakti. In celebration of our identity, our continuity. It's not like yesterday we heard somebody saying that it was invented in some 20th century or something like that. So you have people like that. So you have to believe in the continuity and the heritage. So if somebody says that India is a 1947 construct, you can be sure that he is not an Indic. And if somebody says the pluralism of this country is coming because of the constitution, again he is not an Indic, because the pluralism is coming because of our Bharatiyata. So this is our test, and this is the frameworks that we are building in. Lastly, I want to tell you how this G2G has evolved into this. The article that I was referring to is again by another Bangalorean. His name is Sri Ramachandra Guha. I am grateful to him. So G2G is grateful to Guha also. I have transformed his condescension, his mocking, his patronizing attitude, and I have taken it as an energy and converted and set about a journey of discovering Bharat. There are some people who have recently found out that discovery of Bharat means South India as a separate country. But our discovery of Bharat is all these people. This is our Bharat. We have taken a sankalpam that all gurus from 1947, wherever they are, in any of these 1147 districts, they will be discovered, they will be honored, they will be venerated, their pada pujas will be done, and there will be a Tejasvi Surya who will also felicitate. This is our sankalpam. We have to conclude my talk, I only appeal to the friends here. Do not try to get into the plague. The plague is to be avoided. There's a border security force that we have created. There's an objective Anand Ranganathan that is there. There's a fearless and a firebrand Shafali that is there. There's a dogged and determination of truth, Swati Goel, that is there from Swarajya. And there's a genius, there's a prodigy called Indology that is there. So leave it to them. Don't waste your time on social media. If you want to preserve, protect, and promote, get out of this protection, get out of social media. Come to preservation, come to promotion. This change in your approach would enable you to discover such great, venerable gurus. Thank you so much.